Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and we're looking at CoinPaprika.com, one of my sponsors, and these guys are showing a very flat market. It's boring, so I'm going to move on from that. This is not boring. Oh boy, hold tight. Let the currency wars begin. Curious to see what the dollar does Monday. Got gold. Well, the Digital Asset Investor has a sponsor who is my sponsor who has a gold platform, Glint. These guys, you can get a debit MasterCard with it. What I do is I buy gold on their platform, and then I have this MasterCard so that I can spend my gold. Link at the top of the description of this video. You can click on it. Tell them DAI sent you. Now, a must-watch video from Bull Diep. Watch this.
I chose Ripple. I had a lot of options.
This is Rosie Rios, former treasurer of the U.S., current board member at Ripple.
But I chose them because they have a functional role. So they facilitate cross-border payments. It's one of their functions with XRP. So it's not just some floating asset out there. They actually have a purpose, right? And so you know, it was the right choice for me. Someone else might have some.
So I'm in the XRP army.
Okay,
to let
yay,
you know,
excellent,
I'm a firm believer of the utility component.
Excellent.
And hopefully this thing going on right now, the SEC will go away soon.
I think what President Biden's executive order that he announced in March to have this kind of reconnaissance of digital assets for this calendar year is an important one. It may not get to very specific recommendations, but I think the best you're going to hope for, at least today, is at least a path forward. Sure. How do you start these conversations? How do you, one of my favorite phrases that you'll hear me quote all the time is the train's already left the station. Blockchain is here to stay. Absolutely. Because of fractional real estate, art, NFTs, sure, whatever. It's here to stay. But how do we lay the tracks?
Absolutely.
How do you
lay the tracks? And I've never heard the other side of the table, but I imagine both sides are trying to figure out, we're trying to figure out the rule book. Like we're trying to figure, it's never been done.
Look, and here's the thing.
It's very challenging on both sides.
This economy needs innovation to recover. It needs jobs.
There you go. Now we're talking. Okay, this morning, breaking SEC charged Kim Kardashian for unlawfully touting Ethereum Max without disclosing the payment she received. So this has two things in it. They did the similar thing to Floyd Mayweather, who was promoting a token, and he was promoting a token, and then he I guess he didn't say what he was paid or that he was paid or something like that. Similar thing here. And the other thing is to get out of this is Ethereum Max. And I was watching CNBC, and they asked him, they said, well, since you're putting this is another one on the books where you're saying Ethereum's a security. So we'll see how that unfolds. This weekend, Charles Gasparino says, breaking major exodus of talent from Credit Suisse. Investment bank is helping to fuel speculation over the health of the overall market. Sources tell Fox Business. As I reported, the CEO is telling major institutional investors the bank has sound liquidity, capital, etc. So here's CNBC talking about this a little bit.
Here we are. Shares of Credit Suisse plunging. This after the Financial Times and really a tweet actually that went out from somebody on a Friday actually is what really led to this. The bank's executives there over the weekend in talks with major investors to try to reassure them that the Swiss lender's financial health is okay. They've been trying to downplay this idea of a possible Lehman moment. That followed reports on Friday that the Swiss lender is looking to raise capital. The bank telling Reuters it is in the process of a strategy review that includes potential divestitures, asset sales, and then an announcement could come, or I shouldn't say could come, is expected on October 27th. So mark your calendar. I'll explain that in a second when it releases third quarter results. One potential scenario would include the bank largely exiting the U.S. market, but literally, I would say starting Saturday morning, I got a phone call from somebody who said, are you paying attention to this? Yeah. Do you remember 2008? I mean, it was talked about. I mean, this weekend was.
So they're comparing things to the financial crisis. So hold on, I was getting a text here. All right. So check this out. So then there was this, $600 billion, what Lehman Brothers held in assets when they crashed and took the economy with them, $2,800 billion what Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank control in assets under management, 4.6 times more. Credit Suisse is at a critical moment now, says the CEO. What lies in store for the world? This will be interesting. They did a whole thread on it. I'm not going to go through all that because I got some more interesting things to show you. Now, this weekend, I was looking around and I found something interesting. This guy's name is Coy Garrison. He's now with a law firm called Steptoe & Johnson. He's doing an interview with Laura Shin. Here's why it's significant. Coy Garrison worked for Bill Hinman at the time of the Ethereum Free Pass speech. And then he went to work for Hester Pierce. Listen to what's said in this talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent the last 9 years or so at the SEC, and crypto has been a very large part of my portfolio. You know, my journey started back in 2014. I was a young staff attorney, and due to my youth, a filing was plopped on my desk by my boss saying, here's the Winklevoss Bitcoin Trust. I don't know what a Bitcoin is, but you're young, you can figure it out. So from there, I was off to the races and became the go-to person in the building for the Bitcoin ETP filing applications and really learned the industry through those filings. I had the pleasure of working as director of Division of Corporation Finance, Bill Hinman's counsel, for about a year and a half, where we saw a lot of crypto, not only ETP applications, registered coin offerings, but then, of course, his famous ETH speech.
So there he is right there. Let me go back here. This is Senior Special Counsel, Office of the Director, Division of Corporation Finance, May 2018. The speech was on June 14th, 2018. So he was the guy advising Bill Hinman. So he would have to know what went on during that time.
And then for the last 3 years, I've had the absolute pleasure of working for Commissioner Peirce, advising her on all crypto matters and working with her on her safe harbor proposals and really trying to push the agency into a more pro-innovation stance.
So that's him with Hester Pierce, who he works for now, or did work for before he left.
So as we mentioned, you were working with Bill Hinman at the time that he made his speech saying that ETH was decentralized in his view. And that has actually been called into question under Chair Gensler. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about kind of what the thinking was that went into.
Now, keep in mind, Laura Shin, she knows all about ETHgate and will not ask about any of that. So you know where she's coming from. She wrote an entire book on Ethereum and will not talk about it. And she knows about the disguised whales, will not talk about it, didn't put it in her book.
That speech saying that ETH was decentralized and whether or not you think any factors have changed to call into question now whether or not it truly is decentralized.
Sure. Yeah. So, I think it's very important to remember the securities law analysis under Howey, and everybody knows Howey now and the Howey test. I won't go into details. It's incredibly flexible and incredibly fact sensitive, right? And so the Bill Hinman Ether speech was an attempt at acknowledging that the facts do change as the product evolves, right? As something is, when it is sold, a certain set of promises might attach to an asset when it is sold and might make it a security. But over time, those promises might fall away and it might become a non-security and just a different asset. That acknowledgement, I think, is still very valid and still very real. I think it's a ongoing analysis that, people can raise questions all the time. That's part of the deal. But at the end of the day, that core concept, I think, is very alive and accurate, that the security label shouldn't have to follow an asset at all times. If there are no promises surrounding the asset, then it's curious to me how something could be in an investment contract.
And so
no promises. Now, where have we heard that recently? I will show you where we've heard that recently.
But on that point of an investment contract, the SEC has made the case in its motion that there can be an investment contract without a contract, any rights granted to the purchaser and without any obligations to the issuer. What do you say to that?
In order to have a contract, you have two parties. No matter how the SEC wants to spin the facts, the reality is to have a contract, you have two parties have to agree on something. You don't necessarily have it written. You could have oral contracts, you can have implicit contracts, but you have to have two parties. The reality is there are not two parties. Ripple doesn't know who bought the XRP. The people who bought the XRP don't necessarily know Ripple. You have to remember that 99.9% of XRP trading has nothing to do with Ripple, the company. So when you talk about, okay, XRP is a security, I go back to something I said years ago when this started. A security of what company? Of what, like, who is the owner? So I think it's very clear there is no investment contract. If you get past the investment contract, which I think is hard, across the Howey test, you also...
All right, so I think that, and so remember, this is the guy that worked with Bill Hinman, and Bill Hinman is the one, because we covered it last week, he's the one, he had already left the SEC and came back to the SEC to talk to Ripple, and I'm assuming made sure that to make sure the lawsuit went through against Ripple.
So in your view, nothing has materially changed about Ether to call into question whether or not it is a commodity at this point? Oh, and meaning that you have a different view from Chair Gensler, or?
Sure. No, I'm not familiar enough with his thinking. I'm not here to speak for Chair Gensler exactly why he's thinking or how he's doing his analysis. But I think it's just fair to say that the analysis is the same. The analysis has always been the same. The law has not changed, and I think we're all operating from the same law, which is a good starting point.
And in a similar vein, there's another crypto asset, XRP, that has been going through a very long, drawn-out case with the SEC, which has charged it with being a security and with Ripple as issuing securities. What is your take on what might happen in that case?
Sadly, I can't speak on it based on my work at the SEC, but like everybody else, I'll be watching to see how it unfolds.
Man. He didn't want to talk about that. Well, John Deaton and Jeremy Hogan weighed in on this. Good interview by Lars Shin. I would love to have him answer the question that SEC Enforcement Director refused to answer. Was the Hinman speech screened for conflicts approved by the SEC Ethics and approved by the SEC Ethics Office? Corey Garrison was on the email list. It's an easy, no one answers. So there's Corey Garrison right there in the emails. I'm assuming he's on that. Yeah, there he is again right there. So he knows. And I said it in my thing, he knows. Now, Jeremy Hogan says, if there are no promises surrounding an asset, I'm curious how it can be an investment contract. That's Corey Garrison, Hinman's SEC counsel, which also happens to be Ripple's first argument for summary judgment, post-sale obligations argument. And then John Deaton says, the question, Jeremy, is did he make that same comment in the Hinman emails, and did he or someone else in the email chain say, hey, no promises surround XRP, why not exclude it also with Ethereum? And then the question after this, John, if you're listening, John Deaton, the next question after this one is, if in those emails at the SEC, if it is shown that someone did say this, and they still went and drug Ripple through a 2 to 3 year lawsuit, who pays over at the SEC? Who gets punished when this was obviously a question? Who gets punished at the SEC, past and present? Because that's the problem we have in the United States of America, is none of these people ever pay for the things that they do. And until they do, we literally are, it's like we're living in some kind of a criminal state, dictatorship or something. And then I tweeted this weekend, Ethereum's killer app was Bill Hinman. And that's the fact, Jack. Before we go, I want to remind you of something. There was this hack on this Wintermute. Hacker steals, or maybe this, $950,000 in Ether from a crypto wallet via the same vanity address exploit linked to an attack on trading firm Wintermute last week. So this is a different attack, which is why Ledger is one of my sponsors too. They got the bundle packs on the platform right now. I'll put a link to this in the top of the description. I have several of these that I store crypto on. I have found them to be a lifesaver, or a crypto saver maybe. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family that Ledger Nano S, or not Nano S, they don't have those anymore. They've got the Ledger Family Pack S Plus, which is the, they call one of them the Ledger X, I believe, and one's the S.